doing? Today we are supposed to complete this what? Pollination is over. No? So today we have to study a concept on double fertilization. Let us start with this. First of all, let us write down the concept of fertilization. What is the concept of fertilization that we have to study here? The basic structure of the plant, you know, the parts, reproductive structures, okay, right? Already got from the last part of the chapter. Now we have to study what are the type of reproductive cells that the plant produces. We draw a diagram now. What is the type of the reproductive cells the plant produces? And what is the method of fertilization to give rise to the seed? That's the next concept in this chapter. First of all, we'll write down the definition of fertilization. What's the meaning of the word fertilization? Then we'll draw the diagram. Liko, write down the head of the topic, fertilization. The fusion of male and female gametes. वेदांत and this word क्या नाम है तुम्हारा? अनिश दोनों सामने आ रहे वेदांत और अनिश जो सबसे महान नाम इधर बैठता हूँ वो याद है तो तुम कॉन्फ्रेंस में आ रहे हाँ क्लास कभी मैं बात नहीं करता कल कभी बात किया मैंने क्या आप इनको कर रहे आप इनको भेजिए ना वो बैठ जाएंगे लाल रंग के बच्चे हमेशा सरल बनेगा आप करेंगे I trust girls. Girls are supposed to be more sincere, no? हंसी आती है हाँ नहीं रखो हाँ girls will always be proud, no? है ना बदमाश तो तुम लोग हो तो लाठी मार के पढ़ाना पड़ता है fusion of male and female gametes देखो चैप्टर क्या चल रहा है वो भी समझ में नहीं आया अभी तक 2 मिनट हो चुका लेक्चर स्टार्ट हो गया reproductive cells fusion of male and female gametes to form zygote. This is called fertilization. So first of all, what is the definition of fertilization? We have to know. Now let us draw one diagram. Pencil से draw करना है. I'm going to give you just 5 minutes to finish the diagram. Pencil sharp होना चाहिए when you are drawing the diagram. Your diagram should look neat. it becomes take it one day. नीचे का चेक कर लेना घर के सूत्र करके रख देते पढ़ के हमको अगली पेज पढ़ते हैं क्लास में कौन बात कर रहा था पूछ रहा था क्या पूछ रहे थे क्या
इरेजर मैम
इरेजर
मैम खराब हो गया अभी हम इधर बैठो
धीरे धीरे में दरवाजा खोल पेन है कि पेंसिल है पास
मैम वो ओव्यूल और एंटीपोडल से सेम ही है
कौन सा ओव्यूल
ओव्यूल और
नहीं ovule is this entire part that's why I have put it on the top antipodals are the cells These cells are.
यही एग्जाम
हाँ गलत पेपर दिया था. Teachers are also human, no? अच्छा. Anyway, यहाँ ठीक है, teachers ही है. Error तो हो भी सकता है ना, मुझे 60 अच्छा.
अरे और एक क्वेश्चन है ना आउट ऑफ सिलेबस से देखा था मैंने कल जल्दी कब देखा
अगले टेस्ट में फुल मार्क्स लाके देता हूँ.
कौन सा मैम
अगले टेस्ट.
इस चैप्टर का
मैम फ्लावर में क्या
फुल मार्क्स मिला.
मतलब 60 आउट ऑफ 16
16 out of 20 मिला पूरा.
मैम 4 मार्क का आउट ऑफ सिलेबस
मुझे कितना मिला?
हाँ तो मुझे जितना मिला वो करेक्ट है.
अनिश तुमको लॉयर बनना चाहिए. I can very much predict the right profession for you. हो गया भक्ति.
एक्सेल और फाइनल में डिफरेंस क्या है?
कौन सा?
एक्सेल और
Excel ये बड़ा वाला है and the size of the smaller ones on the lateral side the synergy. Why we start saying?
I like it private people.
और माइक्रो
Micropile is this opening. ये opening. Micropile. Done. I can't give you any more time. Done. Okay. Done. Both of you.
Yes.
वेदांत बाबू हुआ कि नहीं? हो रहा है.
हो गया.
और कितना टाइम लगेगा? क्यों? भाई आया नहीं इस क्लास में?
नहीं आया.
क्यों?
नाम
मराठी का एग्जाम है तो पेपर मराठी में भी होगा.
बीमार है.
Now, we are going to study the concept of fertilization. But now we are talking about angiosperm plants which has got well-developed plants. I mean, plants which has got well-developed plants, they generally show a method known as double fertilization. ये तो हो गया basic concept of fertilization. But we are actually going to study a concept of double fertilization. So we'll see here what is the process, phases, steps क्या है of the concept of double fertilization. So first of all, I say this way, that the process of fertilization that we are going to study is double fertilization. Plants generally show double fertilization. So what is happening there? What are the steps? What is the process? The process of double fertilization would be something like this. First of all, when we are talking about the pollen grains, now that you are already sure about the process of pollination, how does it occur, the methods, the agents and everything. So now if the pollen grain comes in contact with the stigma, and if it is the correct type of the stigma, no? Yesterday only we were talking about sterility, incompatibility and all this things. So the particular type of a pollen which is released from the anther should come in contact with the stigma of a same flower or a similar type of a plant. But something like if the pollen of the mango falls on the stigma of the cucumber, maybe they will not undergo the process of fertilization, maybe completely different type of plants. So if I'm saying that similar type of plants are there, then the pollen will start the process of germination. So what would be the process? Process would be, first step is, if this is the pollen, which is a single cell structure and a single nucleus it has got. First of all, this pollen will start the process of division. First of all, the pollen will start the process of division, and side by side, the pollen will also show process of growth, something known as the germ tube. So this will start the process of germination. So the structure would be something like this. First of all, the structure would be something like this, where the nucleus gets divided into two parts. The nucleus gets divided into two parts. What are these called? This is called the generative nucleus. This is called the generative nucleus. And what about this one? This is called the vegetative nucleus. Vegetative nucleus. So this pollen, which actually has got two layers and the outer lining is bit spiny. It generally has got two layers, known as the outer layer, known as the exine and the etine. No, these layers are also there. So the layers, they will break through the layers and then ultimately result in the process of germination. And germination would basically involve the formation of two nuclear components from one and the formation of a germ tube. So ये जो structure बनता है इसको बोलेंगे germ tube. Germ tube. Then this germ tube will start growing through this style. The style is packed with nutrients which allow the process of cell division. So now the process of cell division has to happen. Nutrients are required to supply energy. So the entire style region is packed with nutrients, which the pollen is using for the process of germination. Next one, what would be the next step of this? This would start again the further process of growth like this, where the pollen tube is now continuously growing. And what about the nucleus? The generative nucleus divides further, which we will now consider that these are the two actual male cells, the male nucleus rather, not cells exactly, male nucleus. And what about the vegetative nucleus? The vegetative nucleus will remain for some time. And after some time, the nutrition of the vegetative nucleus will all be used up by the male gametes and the formation of the pollen tube. So here we are already talking about that how exactly the male gametes are formed. How exactly the male gametes are formed from one nucleus, two nuclear components. Don't talk, both of you. From one nucleus, two nuclear components are formed. And this is actually what are the male gametes. So what I said just now, ये जो vegetative nucleus जो रहता है initially, after some time it will not be there, it will just disappear. By the time the pollen tube is that long now. Now the question is, how long will the pollen tube grow? Till when will the pollen tube grow? The pollen tube will keep growing unless and until it comes and touches the base of the ovule. First, the pollen tube, what's the function of the pollen tube? The transfer of the gametes. The transfer of the male gamete, that's the function of the pollen tube. So the pollen tube ultimately has to grow and reach the base of the ovule. So you have your male gametes. What about the female gametes? I talk about the ovule. This is the ovule. The ovule also has got a single nucleus. What is ovule? What is the definition of the word ovule? It's a chamber of the ovary. Segment or compartments of the ovary. No? And a particular ovary, is it necessary that it should have only one ovule? Ovary can have multiple ovules also, but we are only talking about one right now. No? We are talking about one. So now I talk about that. ये अगर एक ovule है, and then the ovule has got one single nucleus. This ovule will undergo two sets of meiotic division, two sets of meiosis. Now you'll wonder what is meiosis. Meiosis is a type of a cell division जहाँ पे एक बार division होगा, then the cell will actually give rise to four cells. Now I said a concept of different type of division, जिसको mitosis कहते हैं, where one nucleus divides into two. Here I'm actually talking about meiosis, where one nucleus divides into four. So this is just for understanding. Process हमें अभी नहीं सीखना है. You will learn in the 10th. So here this nucleus is getting divided into four first, and then again into another four. So ultimately 8. I said two sets of meiotic division होता है. So ultimately now the ovule will take the shape something like this, where there will be a big cell, big nuclear part known as egg cell. What is the big nuclear part that you have drawn? Egg cell. And then the surrounding, what are they called? Look into the diagram and tell you what are they called? The egg cell, and surrounding the two smaller synergids. The central two polar nuclei and the anterior three antipodals. So ultimately now we are talking about that, yes, these are the antipodals. These are the antipodals. Then we have got the polar nuclei. Then we have got the egg cell. And then we have got what? The synergids. So ultimately, how many nuclear parts will come across from one? There are now 8 nuclear components. There are now 8 nuclei formed. So we can say 8 nuclei. What is the meaning of the word nuclei? N-U-C-L-E-I? Plural of nucleus. No. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. From one nucleus, we got 8 nuclei. But actually, the potential female gamete is which one? Are all these 8 nuclei the potential gametes of the female? No, the potential gamete is the egg cell because it has got maximum concentration of cytoplasm. So maximum concentration of cytoplasm क्यों जरूरत होता है? Why maximum concentration of cytoplasm is necessary? Because after the process of formation of zygote, that cytoplasm only is going to help in the process of cell division, provide nourishment. So ये हो गया how exactly the gametes are getting formed. So now we are already through it, how the male gamete has come into existence and how the female gamete has come into existence. अभी हमें समझना है what are the steps. What are the steps? Now, to understand the steps, the 2 phases of double fertilization. I already said we are going to talk about double fertilization. So, what is the first step? The first step is known as syngamy. The first step is known as syngamy or true fertilization. The first step is known as syngamy or true fertilization. Let us try. Syngamy, what's the meaning of the word syngamy? Syn matlab similar. Syn matlab similar. Similar type of gametes only will undergo the process of fertilization. The gametes are not similar, will they undergo the process of fertilization? They will never undergo the process of fertilization. So what is the first step? This first, now look at the figure. All of you, look at the figure to understand. The first male gamete.
Where is it?
Syngamy the name is there's more syngamy.
Acha, syngamy or fertilization.
She is not there.
It is there. Double fertilization, therefore the method of fertilization there.
I'm no figure.
It should be.
No,
It should be there.
इधर किधर है?
अच्छा कहाँ से आए हो यार कौन से स्कूल से आए हो तुम लोग हाँ
इसके लिए आता हूँ. You got it from the other one.
सीधे page 43 page 44 देखा page 44 germination I already told you just now about the process of germination. Underline that word double fertilization. Do you see written in blue down there? Double fertilization देखा. Now, next week we are going to talk about the process of fertilization. See there, the process of fertilization is here. Two fertilization, double fertilization. देखा? Two fertilization. These are the steps of fertilization. These are the steps of fertilization that we are going to study now. And okay, other things I will show you here. The other phase, double fertilization हो गया, and the step that you are going to study now is all given in this paragraph. I will give you the form of not table in the form of points. Just 2 points to understand here. So what are the steps? The first double fertilization you are already understanding. In the same ovule, fertilization is happening twice. That's the reason it is known as double fertilization. That's the reason it is termed as double fertilization. So twice, मतलब कैसे हो रहा है? The first one. I talk about this male gamete. Can you see? All of you look into the figure. Bhakti and stop talking. Bhakti, you talk a lot. Now, this one, when we are talking about the first male gamete, this male gamete will start traveling and it will start moving and coming towards the base of the ovule. In that case, the pollen tube is acting as what? Just a passage pathway. The pollen tube is just acting as a tube. It is allowing the gametes to get transferred. So, ये जो male gamete है, it is moving now. It is coming down, coming down, coming down. And when it comes down here, this male gamete is going to meet which female gamete for the first. At the first, this male gamete is going to come in contact with which female gamete? The egg cell. Because the egg cell is so the potential gamete है on top of that. It is very close to the microphile. It is very close to the opening of the pollen tube. So this male gamete now starts fusing with the egg cell. But in this process of fusion, what is happening? The first step of fusion that I said, the male gamete, the first male gamete, and which female gamete? The egg cell, and undergo the process of fusion and result in the formation of what? Result in the formation of the zygote. What is a zygote? It's a single cell formed after the process of fertilization. वैसे तो ये सभी single cells है. What is the difference? These are gametes, reproductive cells. This is a male, this is a female, and this is a male reproductive cell resulting in the formation of a zygote. So now, what would be the change here? ये जो female gamete, the pollen, the nucleus of the pollen है, which comes in contact with the female gamete now, So what happens that this nucleus, which was at the base of the micropyle, now comes very close to the egg cell nucleus. Ultimately, what will happen? They will fuse, resulting in the formation of the big nuclear component. But what will happen to the nucleus, the cytoplasmic parts now? The cytoplasm, I already told you. For a female gamete to be a potential gamete, it is not only in case of the in the plants, it's also in case of the animals. For a female gamete to be a potential gamete, it should always have a large amount of cytoplasm because the cytoplasm has the nutrients to supply for the process of cell division. So, abhi dhire-dhire, this cell, this entire egg cell will start getting displaced from its position. Fertilization ho chuka hai, a zygote has already got formed. Now this will start moving and it will now get replaced little bit. And now this is the big zygote formed with the big nucleus.
Now where is the ovary?
This entire thing is the ovary. This is the ovary. Inside the ovary is the ovary. Now, what is left? The synergids are still left, no? The synergids are still left. The zygote is formed. So what will I name this as? What is this now? Is this the egg cell anymore? No, this is now the zygote. This is now the zygote. Definition will have. But after some time, what about the second male gamete? The second male gamete also will start moving the same way by the pollen tube. And now the second male gamete comes out and starts moving towards the pollen tube, enters through the micropyle. But by the time this male gamete moves out, what also has happened is, ये जो polar nuclei था, polar nuclei are male or female gametes? Female gametes. So this two polar nuclei, they started fusing and they resulted in the formation of a single cell by that time. Something like, I should say, jab tak, when the male gamete has almost come nearer to the micropyle, this has already happened. Now, isko abhi hum polar nuclei to nahi bol sakte. Then what is this also now known as when they are already fused to form a single cell? Now we will say that this is known as a secondary nucleus. This is known as a secondary nucleus, or also known as endosperm nucleus. So now this is there, and the zygote. These are the two prominent cells now which are formed inside the ovule. Which one is the ovule? This is the ovule, remember. This is the ovule. Now, what are the other changes? This zygote will progressively start becoming bigger. But as and when it is getting bigger, bigger meaning what? It is undergoing the process of cell division. Zygote एक single cell होता है, but immediately it will start the formation of cells and cells and cells and result in the formation of a multicellular structure like this. So by that time I'll tell you. So जब तक ये सारे changes हो रहा है, the polar nuclei got converted into the secondary nucleus. The zygote has already started getting converted into a multicellular structure. Can we say that it is a zygote anymore? No, it is now the embryo. What is the difference between the word zygote and the embryo? Zygote is a single cell. Embryo is a multicellular structure. So abhi ye embryo, now it is no more the zygote, rather it has to be termed as the embryo now. So by that time, ye jo second nucleus hai, this second nucleus will go and start fusing with the polar nucleus. I'm sorry, the secondary nucleus. So it will now start taking this pathway and start, because iske sath abhi fusion nahi ho sakta because it is already got converted into a multicellular structure. Now it will start go and fuse with this. So it will fuse with this, but now when it is fusing with this, there are three nuclear components formed, no? इसपे already दो nuclear component have polar nuclei के दो nuclei आ सकते हैं. and ये जो male nuclei एक और, one male nuclei and two female nuclei now getting fused together. That's the reason अब जब ये fusion होगा and fusion के बाद a new cell that is getting formed with 3 nuclei, ये process को बोलेंगे triple fusion. इस process को बोलेंगे triple fusion. But yes, slowly if I continue saying, I should say धीरे-धीरे ये जो embryo है, this embryo is now even becoming bigger. This embryo is now even becoming bigger, and the process of cell division is continuing. And in very short period of time, agar if I am talking about the most common type of the flowers or the plants, the dicot plants के बारे में, which actually we are studying according to your syllabus, then what will happen? ये जो embryo, now that we start the process of cell division to get converted into a bigger multicellular structure, it will utilize the nutrients of the ये जो अभी I'm sorry, तो ये जो अभी बना था by the process of triple fusion, let us learn the name first. इसको क्या बोलेंगे? This is known as endosperm nucleus. This is known as the endosperm nucleus. One male nuclei and 2 female nuclei से जो बनता है cell, उसको हम पहले बोलेंगे endosperm nucleus. But this endosperm nucleus will not exist for a long time if I am talking about the dicot seed, something like the pea, the bean, etc. Okay. Why? Because in these type of cells, the endosperms are generally all used up in the formation of the seed. But if I talk about the other side, like the maize and all, then the endosperm will not be all utilized because the maize seed and all these are comparatively these are simpler seeds, I should say, simpler seeds. So the endosperm retained ho jata hai. The endosperm is always retained till the end. But if I talk about the dicot seeds, which are more complex seeds, the endosperm is all used up, and the seed or the cotyledon is a prominent part in the structure. So धीरे-धीरे क्या होगा? ये जो endosperm nucleus बना था, this will all be wiped out. ये धीरे-धीरे vanish होता रहेगा. Vanish मतलब this structure is growing and utilizing the nutrients from these structures, the endosperm nucleus and also the antipodals. So antipodals and endosperm nucleus, what I'm talking about is, it is nothing but a nuclear component and some cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is always a rich content of nutrition. Now, ये जो embryo है, this embryo now almost occupies the entire structure of the ovule and gets converted into a multicellular structure like this. उसके लिए एक बेल्ट लगाना पड़ता है, एक स्टिक पीछे बांधने का ऐसा सीधा, वो जो अभी जो गणपति आ रहा है, दुर्गा पूजा आ रहा है, what do we do? तो आइडल को रखते हैं ना, पीछे एक स्टिक लगा के रखते हैं ताकि वो गिरे ना.
हाँ, बात भी नहीं कर रहा हूँ.
लेकिन तुम बार-बार एक्सप्लेन कर इसलिए भाई तुम
I have not started teaching just like yesterday. 10 साल से बताना हो गया. I may look very short and मेरा चेहरा देख के मेरे को समझ में आ रहा है. Very disturbing in the class. और मेरे ये 45 मिनट की क्लास में ऑलरेडी मैं आज 5 मिनट लेट आई हूँ. So I really don't have time कि तुमको मैं कुछ अपना ज्ञान भी दूँ. वो बाद में हम देखेंगे. So now when we are talking about this particular structure, ये अभी क्या बन गया? A big multicellular structure बन गया. So this big multicellular structure को हम अभी क्या बोलेंगे? All the structures are now no more there. Now ये जो big multicellular structure बना है, this big multicellular structure we are going to talk about this as the seed. ये जो big multicellular structure अभी बन चुका है, earlier it was zygote, उसके बाद embryo, and now the seed. A big multicellular structure utilizing the nutrients of the synergids, utilizing the nutrients of the antipodals, utilizing the nutrients of the endosperm nucleus. So अभी ये सारी चीज that we have talked about one after the other, it's no more existing. So what is actually existing is only the seed now. What about this pollen tube and all? They will start drying out and shriveling off. They will start drying out and shriveling off, fall down. And what about this? The entire structure will now start getting converted into a fruit because yes,
fall down there. Gravity.
Fall down the soil because these parts are all going to get dried out and एक के बाद they will get detached from the plant, detached from the thalamus.
So ma'am, अभी दो male gametes ma'am, what if more than 2 male gametes are there?
More than 2 तो होता ही नहीं है कभी. A single pollen,
अच्छा pollen एक हाँ.
एक single pollen से 2 ही male gamete बनेगा, उससे ज्यादा नहीं बनेगा. And then now ये जो पूरा जो seed था, yes, it has got an outer cover, okay, एक outer cover है, and then enter inside. Now there's a well-developed multicellular structure. So this well-developed multicellular structure we call it as a seed. What about the outer cover? We call it as the seed coat. Actually, which is the cover of the ovule. The ovule का जो outer lining था, that has got converted into the seed coat. Or ovary. Now I had labeled this part as ovary. If you remember, I had labeled somewhere, you know, this part as the ovary. If you check your diagrams. तो ये जो ovary wall है and the seed coat है, उसके बीच में काफी सारे cytoplasmic substances होगा, which will now start getting more and more dense and mature and resulting in the formation of a large amount of those parenchymatous tissues. And something like what we call it as the mesocarp of the fruit, mesocarp, or I should say the pulp of the fruit, mesocarp or the pulp of the fruit. And ये जो ovary wall है, this ovary wall will get converted into what? The fruit wall or the pericarp. So ultimately क्या हो गया? The entire ये जो upper part of the ovary था, right from the thalamus, the upper part, all these are already gone and dried up. And this part, the swollen part, that only started undergoing a lot of modification. The entire ovary started forming the fruit. The wall of the ovary, the peel of the fruit. And seed or fruit wall के बीच में जो pulp है, something like if you remember the mango, seed or fruit wall, मतलब peel और seed के बीच में वो pulp है जो हम खाते हैं. So that's the pulp portion, and then inside the seed, and then the seed core. So this is basically a dichotomy that I'm talking about. And this, the thalamus is again getting modified, resulting in the formation of the stalk of the fruit. No, that stick, that brown color stick, the stalk of the fruit. So this transformation is what you are supposed to understand under these two methods. First is syngamy and then triple fusion. So let us now write down. So when we are talking about
उल्टा होता है वो. Apple stick down and the upper body up.
This will remain attached to the plant. No? This part will remain attached to the plant. If I'm talking about the mango and all, but if I'm talking about the apple, yes, this part is actually attached to the plant. No? This part is actually attached because this is the thalamus. The thalamus part will always remain attached to the plant.
So ma'am, there are different ovules and there are more.
So I said, if I talk about the mango, a true fruit, I took an example of a true fruit. That's what is mentioned. Yes. For a true fruit, yes, one ovule. But I may talk about jackfruit, where the ovary has so many ovules. Fertilization has happened in so many. Seeds are also so many.
Ma'am, but एक ovule जो भी fertilize हो रहा है, पर दूसरा pollen में वही नहीं जा सकता.
No. Yes. The other different pollen grains, yes, at one particular period of time, so many pollen grains must have started germination. But after time, into one micropyle and into one ovule, only two can enter.
And I'm wanting the pollen is more than the number of ovules.
But at the same time, pollen grains, even if there are hundreds, only few will undergo the process of fertilization. So that's the reason in that plant, even if there are some 60, 70 ovules also, but even if I understand that there are 20, 25 chambers, not necessarily all of them have undergone the process of fertilization successfully. Understood? So now, every particular type of fruit that we come across. So this is this contrast that I'm talking about. You see papaya, so many seeds inside. You see jackfruit, so many seeds inside. But apple is just an exception when I talk about apple. Apple is an exception because it is not actually formed only by this method. It is not formed by this method of fertilization, where the entire thalamus got modified, dried up, and the ovule only got converted into the fruit, the seed. without fertilization, and the entire ovary got converted to fruit. तो उसमें तो कोई particular process of double fertilization हुआ ही नहीं है. As a reason we consider that as a false fruit. That's not a true fruit. So let us understand the steps. In carrying out fertilization, this is of course given here in your book. So fertilization, what is meant by fertilization? What does it give rise to? It gives rise to a zygote. What is a zygote? A zygote is a single cell. A zygote is a single cell formed by the process of fertilization. Then what will be the fate of the zygote? The zygote will undergo the process of cell division. It will undergo the process of cell division, and after the process of cell division, what will it give rise to? What will it give rise to? An embryo. It's an embryo, a multicellular structure. Then what is the second step that we are going to understand? The second step is the fusion of one male gamete or the other male gamete with the polar nuclei. We are saying polar nuclei. So it is understood already that it is true. We are polar nuclei. Then this will give rise to what? The endosperm nucleus. This will give rise to endosperm nucleus. Then again, the fusion of the fusion, okay, endosperm nucleus. Fusion of the polar nuclei will give rise to the endosperm nucleus, and the fusion of the male gamete and endosperm nucleus. The fusion of the male gamete and the endosperm nucleus. What is it going to give rise to? So, I said fusion of the polar nuclei will give rise to the no, secondary nucleus. Will give rise to secondary nucleus. Secondary nucleus, okay? This steps you will just write it down also. Fusion of the male gamete and secondary nucleus, and secondary nucleus will give rise to endosperm. Will give rise to endosperm nucleus. Then these two steps will ultimately result in the formation of a true seed. But the true seed you are going to get from the embryo. Now later the embryo is going to get converted into the seed. The embryo is going to get converted into the seed. And what will be the fate of the ovary? The ovary will turn into the fruit. Right, these two steps. This is what is actually explained in your book also. These two steps you should remember. Then what is this step actually known as? This step is also known as triple fusion. This step is also known as triple fusion. Why is it called triple fusion? Because it is a fusion of three nuclei, fusion of three gametes. Two female and one male. Two female and one male. Why two female? Because secondary nucleus itself is fusion of two female gametes. Then you have to understand the fate of the ovule and the ovary. The ovary forms the fruit, the ovule forms the seed. Now, very fast, try to do this. Questions number E, if you have not finished. Complete karo. Fatapat, take these steps. Complete number E, 1 and 2. Before the class is over. 1 and 3. I'm sorry, 1 and 3. No, 1 and 3. No, 2 and 3. Not 1. 1 is not the right disease. 2 and 3 karo complete. Fatapat. 2 and 3. See if you have understood. If the steps are clear. 2 and 3. Fusion of male gamete and secondary nucleus only will give you the endosperm. No, I made a mistake earlier. See, देखो पहले क्या रहता है? पहले I had drawn ये जो ovule जो मैंने draw किया था earlier I had drawn polar nuclei था. Then उसके बाद क्या हो रहा था? These two polar nuclei were getting fused and a secondary nucleus was getting coming into existence. So what is the process of fusion? But like this fusion को हम fertilization बोल सकते? Can we say this process is fertilization? No. Then next is what another male gamete coming here. Now ये जो male gamete और secondary, this is secondary nucleus. ये दोनों के फ्यूजन से now the new cell that gets born, this is known as endosperm nucleus. हाँ, वो मैंने भी कंफ्यूजन किया था यहाँ पे, but I do wrong.
E2 and 3.
E12. If you are not going to finish it now, of course, and wait, complete the homework. Yesterday I gave you 2 questions of homework.
Other four,
Complete किया?
yes.
अरे मैं और रोहित को एक ही
Take
क्वेश्चन
those questions, or I had given you extra questions, no?
What test book must be now? New progress check.
Both the class में कर लिया था. And I had asked you to just go through these 2 process of tables and the process of this pollination of the maize and the pea also. Okay, that is just for answering 1 or 2 mark questions in the draw. Detailed questions में से generally नहीं आता है. Now practice this diagram that we had drawn today, and ये 2 questions you have to complete as homework. Next up, we are going to study. Next up, we are going to start with the process of germination of the seed. Or what is the chapter going on in your school?
this is only serious serious
We have started English.
खत्म तो शुरू ही किया
That is just crossover.
Over and that is the.
What is your exam otherwise? 19th. September. Still. Before that, no exam. Before that, no exam, no? Before that, no exam. We'll do one thing. We'll complete since these are all related chapters. Germination also is a small chapter. It's not a very elaborate chapter. Only 2 methods of germination of good style. So that may give you finish in another 2 lectures, and then we move on to the other set of chapters, like nutrition. Okay.
It's when the characters are there.
इंस्टॉल होगा ना अरे यार कोई जवाब सही था तो लगे इधर वो आया रिफ्लेक्शन आया वो भूल गए
भाई कभी बैठो तो आ रही है
यार मेरी आंट को आती लग रहा है
मिश्रा तो नहीं
हुआ स्कूल में
तेरे ऊपर एक्चुअली मिश्रा वो करते दिखाएंगे मैं मान जाऊंगा कि वैसे कभी आज के बाद फॉलो
ये देख
आपसे
लेकिन फिर मैंने तो प्रोसेस किया अगर तो नीम से बॉडी में कुछ इज्जत मिलेगी उस इज्जत तो मिलनी चाहिए आज के बाद
तो पहले भी तो था।
नहीं